Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 2026 ELA B30 Hockey Draft. My name is Roman Markin, and tonight we are drafting the best stories, poems, and lessons I learned this year. During the first half of the year, we looked at two important themes that helped pick this draft. These themes looked at how people try to figure out who they are while the world tries to shape them. Through some of these novels, we learned that human behavior is slightly influenced by fear, pressure, and power. Rules about the draft is that each and every pick will represent a text and theme we looked at this semester. Every selection will connect to at least one of the two course themes, the search for self or the social experience. Some picks will look more on identity and some on society. And even crazier during this draft, some will show the two collide. When the draft is done, we should have a full team that is built on human behavior and growth with talents and skills that showcase power, fear, and choice. The clock is on. Let the draft begin.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first round of the 2026 Literary Draft. With the first overall pick, I am proud to announce the selection of Lord of the Flies by William Golding. What a pick.
This is a franchise-changing pick for the team and for the social experience. A group of boys is stuck in a society with no rules and no law or authority. There's no consequence for their actions. And at first, their playing style consisted of discipline, but as the season went on, their fear and desire for power took over their playing style. Jack uses fear to control the group, while Ralph tries to maintain order and his responsibilities. You know, the last few years have been tough for this organization, but this pick shows that without rules and leadership, our society collapses and people can turn savage. It reminds us that structure is so important, and this novel proves that human behavior can shift when power is involved. This novel is very skilled and really shows how human behavior can shift when power is involved. This pick directs the outcome on this draft in so many ways.
With the second overall pick, I announce the selection of Othello by William Shakespeare.
This pick represents the search for self. Othello is a respected player and powerful leader on the ice, but secretly the reason he dropped to second overall was due to his insecurity. Instead of changing himself and trusting himself, he lets opponent Iago influence his thoughts, and that causes him to lose control. And that loss of self-awareness leads to jealousy and destruction. You know, this pick teaches us a lot. That talent alone isn't going to get you to the big leagues, but I believe if he understands who he is and doesn't become vulnerable to outside noises, he could become great, so nothing could fall apart. I mean, this is a great pick and was looked over at the season to go first overall, but it teaches us that when people don't know who they are, they become very easy to control. I've played many hockey seasons as a pro, as many of you know watching this, but one thing I can say about this pick is that identity is a form of strength, and without it, players lose their confidence, judgment, and morality. This pick shows how damaging insecurity can be when mixed with pressure.
With the third overall, I announce the selection of Just Mercy by Brian Stevenson.
This is a strong two-way defenseman pick that connects to both the social experience and the search for self. This pick shows both injustice in our legal system and how society treats people differently based on how they look and the amount of power they possess. You know, at the same time, the book really follows Stevenson's journey as he looks for some purpose and values, and through his career he finds himself learning to stand up for justice, and he realizes that it requires empathy, and we see that during the season. You know, this pick solidifies that finding yourself usually means standing up for others, and I believe identity isn't always about who you are, but who you stand up for. And we see that during the season. This pick solidifies that finding yourself usually means standing up for others, and I believe that identity isn't always about who you are, but who you stand up to be. Just Mercy is one of the best picks in the draft and very underrated.
With the fourth overall pick, I announce the selection of Identity by Julio Polanco.
This is a confident pick for our team. He shows the search for self and refuses to fall into everyone's standards and chooses himself instead of trying to fit in with other players. This reminds me that identity comes from experience and within and not from everyone's approval. This pick represents staying true to yourself even when it's easier to fall for everyone's pressure. In a society that pressures people to fit in, Knowing and staying true to yourself is courage, and this pick tells us that identity should be chosen, not assigned.
With the 5th overall pick, I announce the selection of Our Deepest Fear by Mary Ann Williamson.
This pick really explores how people are afraid of their own potential. And we see that through many seasons and many people who hold themselves back, not because they fear failure, but I think they fear their success and responsibility. I think watching and scouting this player, I see that this connects to both of the themes in so many ways. People struggle with self-doubt and society pressures, and that causes them to stay within certain limits. This pick teaches us that growth can only really happen when people stop settling for themselves.
With the 6th overall pick, I announce the selection. The selection is I Am Not I by Juan Jimenez.
This player focuses on the idea that a person's identity is very hard to understand and is constantly changing over time. It really connects to the search for self by showing that a player can learn and grow from the start of a season to the end. This pick reminds me of the search for self and lets us know that identity is a full-blown journey as players and not a destination. And I can relate that to a young hockey player who develops over seasons, and as an individual, they learn more about themselves and what type of player they are by the end of their career.
With the 7th overall pick, I announce the selection is The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas by Ursula Le Guin.
This was a tough pick for us as an organization, but powerful for the social experience. This player shows a society that was built on suffering, and from one person, it helps people watching right now to decide whether they would accept skill or talent for the cost of someone's pain. This pick shows that we aren't as moral as we say, and people must decide whether to accept this injustice or just run away. I think this player shows that societies often focus on comfort over true fairness, and people must decide to accept injustice or just walk away from it. This pick shows that being part of a society sometimes means you have to be able to make difficult choices in tight situations.
The 8th pick in the first round, the last overall pick, the selection is Shooting an Elephant by George Orwell.
This was a hard pick to close the draft out, but it demonstrates how pressure and peer pressure can control somebody in so many ways. He chose his playing style against his beliefs because somebody is pressuring him to do the wrong thing. It really teaches us that people in positions of power can be controlled by public expectations, proving really how deeply society influences how we behave. As the final sound goes to end this draft, one thing became crystal clear. The search for self and the social experience shape every decision we make, whether we know it or not. Some characters lose themselves, some people even challenge society, but all of them show what it means to be human. Just like in hockey, knowing the rules of the game matters, but knowing what kind of player you are matters even more.